Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, How Shipment Visibility is Boosting CX and Managing Costs in Food Logistics. We're excited you could join us for today's session. My name is Megan Billingsley, and I'll be moderating today's event. Today we have with us Raja Nagaraja, Director of Sales for the food team at Tive, where he helps supply chain professionals establish a resilient and strong cold chain by delivering real-time and intelligent data. We also have Vince Rivet, Business Development Executive from BOA Logistics. Vince develops analytical solutions to meet BOA customers' transportation and warehousing needs. Before we get started, I have just a few housekeeping items. Please note the slides will advance automatically throughout the presentation. To enlarge the slides, click the Enlarge Slides button located in the top right corner of your presentation window. If you need technical assistance, click on the Help widget located on the bottom left corner of your console. We encourage you to submit questions at any time throughout the presentation using the Q&A widget at the bottom of your console. We will try to answer these during the webcast, but if a fuller answer is needed or we run out of time, it will be answered later via email. Please know we do capture all questions. All right, so let's get right to it. Better shipment visibility has long been a goal for running a smooth and seamless supply chain, but improving real-time access to the location and condition of shipments is proving to have lots of other benefits too. Earlier this year, Tive launched a survey of 105 supply chain professionals working at food manufacturers, retailers, distributors, 3PLs, and brokers. The survey asked about their most pressing supply chain challenges and digital transformation priorities. It also examined their approach to shipment tracking, monitoring of temperature-controlled shipments, and the volume of shipments that have real-time visibility. Today, we're going to talk about some of the compelling insights that survey revealed and what that tells us about the increasing importance of real-time shipment visibility. We're thrilled to also get a firsthand account of those benefits from Vince Rivet of BOA Logistics. BOA is a Los Angeles-based logistics provider that consolidates and ships perishable food items to their target locations across the country. Their customers are major grocers and food brands, including Trader Joe's, Kroger, Costco, Safeway, and Sysco Foods. So let's get started with the most common challenges supply chain operators in the food industry are facing right now. The survey results found the primary challenge facing food logistics leaders was freight market fluctuations and rising costs at 38%. Logistics service providers ranked cargo theft and fraud second highest as the primary challenge facing their organizations. Food shippers ranked this seventh. Raj, are these the issues you're hearing from Tive customers?
Yeah, definitely, and thanks for the question. I mean, Vince knows this well from the logistics service provider side of things, but transportation logistics is a cost center, and costs are definitely up across the entire food supply chain. You know, the issues you're talking about are definitely things that are being focused on for our customers. And so, you know, transportation and logistics centers being a cost center for our customers, you know, their goal is to deliver products as efficiently at the most economical way possible. But with input costs being as high as they are right now, you know, people are definitely scared to spend more money, but they are definitely looking for ways to combat all of the challenges that they're seeing. You know, the issues that we're seeing are probably not new, you know, whether that be claims or rejections or thefts, but they're definitely heightened right now and getting a big focus as far as how to solve them. And, you know, our studies here at Tive show that about 2% of all the perishable shipments our customers move have some sort of issue, you know, relative to arrival, whether that be late or having a detention or some sort of temperature and quality issue, which could lead to a claim or rejection. And so because of input costs being as high as they are right now, you know, losing shipments to these issues is something people cannot afford to do and operate with on a day-to-day. And so while the issues probably aren't as new as I just alluded to, the desire to solve them and combat against them is definitely being more of a focus than it has in the past, which is causing people to look at solutions like Tive and those in our space.
Thanks, Raj. Vince, can you tell us a bit more about the types of issues that arise while shipments are en route and how that affects your business and your customers?
Yeah, most definitely. I think the biggest thing that we're monitoring with Tive technology is ultimately the temperature of the trailer. You know, spoilage is a big issue in our industry, and refrigerated foods are extremely sensitive. over the road reefers tend to break down, and the drivers don't necessarily recognize that there is an issue with their unit. Basically, the products need to be between 33 and 38 degrees for the most part. If we go outside of that, for whatever the various reasons may be, maybe a trailer is sitting at a receiver for too long, or there is actually something wrong with the reefer, the temperature in the trailer can definitely spike. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, for instance, kombucha will explode if it freezes. Sauces and salad dressings separate if they freeze, which basically ruins the integrity of the product. And then outside of that, there's the chargebacks, aspect, from the retailers. If, for instance, a driver oversleeps and misses a delivery appointment, longer waiting hours at the receivers, and this has definitely been going on since the beginning of COVID. So here at BOA, we're basically utilizing the technology, not just for temperature, but also location monitoring.
Wow, and what does that mean for your business?
Well, it's claim mitigation and rejection mitigation. Claims in the food industry can be extremely costly, and then obviously there's the food safety aspect as well, which is the most important part. So this is really helping us in mitigating potential claims and rejections.
Excellent.
If
Thanks, Vince.
I might add just one thing. I know you were talking about cargo theft. I think before, coming out of this COVID era, we weren't seeing food as one of the most targeted things. But these crime organizations and theft rings have gotten so smart and so efficient, and they're just going after everything. And so we see in the most recent surveys that food and beverages have been one of the most targeted items. They're produced in mass quantities, especially in the CPG space, and they're easily targetable. And so it's no longer just your TVs and your car parts being stolen, but food and beverages as well. I mean, we've had customers in the middle of Nebraska contact us saying, "Hey, I've got a load of beef being, targeted for theft right now. Can you tell me where it's at?" And so technology is really helping people. It's not just, like I said, the electronics and high value things being targeted, but it's food as well. And so it's now a common issue that the food industry is facing and they're having to rely on technology to help with this.
Correct. Yeah. And here at BOA, we have a team dedicated to monitoring the Tide sensors and essentially detecting temperature changes before they actually become an issue, right? And documenting it, ensuring that, the products are actually delivering at the correct temperatures. Quality is obviously very essential. Retailers don't want products with short shelf lives or spoiled items, and the shippers want customers to be happy. So.
Excellent. Thank you both. Raj, can you tell us more about how shippers and brokers are approaching these issues now? What's not working?
Yeah, as it relates to, I mentioned earlier about just how, much technology has progressed, as it relates specifically to our sort of technology within the track and trace space, historically speaking, shippers and receivers have relied on passive solutions, some sort of USB logger or an RF logger where it just tells them passively and post-mortem that something has happened. And it also doesn't give them, more insights outside of temperature. So moving to, real-time solutions, whether it be something with Tive or, one of our partners in the space like Project 44 or Forkites or MacroPoint, where you're getting more real-time insights, whether it be through aggregating data from the truck or through an actual sensor like ours. By getting real-time insights, you're actually able to drive proactive, risk mitigation as opposed to just finding out something happened afterwards. And so that's what's not working. The manual, the sort of passive behavior that only leads to more claims, more rejections, more theft, and less advance notice about these issues happening to actually be able to take an action to prevent it. And so by using real-time solutions, something that's allowing you to operate with data to make informed decisions, it's driving those better outcomes to drive down those claims, drive down those rejections, and be made aware ahead of potential theft or fraud happening.
Interesting. So you're seeing increased interest in real-time tracking?
Absolutely. I mean, when we look at our studies, I'd say probably only a third of the market is using real-time sensors in some capacity. Historically speaking, people just haven't seen the need, costs have been prohibitive, or technology just hasn't worked for their use case. But the way it's progressed, it's really made it, more attractive for all. And, it can be a one size fits all because the devices can do more than just one thing. And it's really what everyone is looking to these days. You're making an investment in a device already, especially within the food sector. Tive operates in many sectors, but within food, having some sort of device is basically, mandatory within food because of legislation within FSMA. And so if you're going to make the investment in a device, why not pay a little bit extra to be actually able to use the data as opposed to just, having a compliance check mark and, not being able to use it to drive a strong outcome.
So given those advancements, why aren't real-time trackers more widely used?
It's often you don't know you need it until something happens. And so you might lose a load to freezing or, to a hot load, or, might have something stolen, or a customer might be mad because you couldn't tell them where their truck is and when something's going to arrive. And that might lead you to finally look into it. And so for a lot of people that, they're catching up with the curve, but I'd say right now, more often than not, the conversations we're having, people are ready for real time. For some people, the cost is just too much. Farmers, particularly within agriculture, have been hit the hardest within the supply chain as far as input costs being as high as they've ever been. And so spending extra money, can be tough for people. But by investing in this sort of solution, saving one shipment or being able to make one customer happier or stickier can be worthwhile to make the investment ROI positive super quickly. So I'd say the curve is definitely catching up, and we're seeing more and more food supply chain stakeholders be in a position to be able to look at it. Tive as a company, our mission is to, every shipment matters. And so we've taken the approach to innovate to make the solutions more affordable and more attractive for all, so that, most people can, begin using real-time solutions.
So given that then, when they realize the cost and CX benefits they can get from better visibility, what do shippers tend to look for in a real-time solution?
Definitely. I mean, you can find a bunch of trackers online. Like if you go to Amazon, you can type in cheap GPS trackers and you can find something. So Tive definitely isn't the only player in the market doing this. But when we position ourselves, we look to a couple different points of attribution as far as our success. Accuracy and reliability from a hardware perspective. You got to remember that we're not just, aggregating data across market. We're actually deploying a physical hardware device on a shipment. And so you want to be working with a best-in-class hardware provider, someone that's got robust cellular connectivity, someone that has precise location tracking, accurate temperature tracking, and that all of the data they're collecting from a hardware perspective is accurate and precise. If that piece isn't checked off, you're probably going to be set up for failure. And so hardware reliability and accuracy is probably number one. And then second to that is definitely on the software side of things. Is this software that they're delivering user-friendly, easily adoptable, and something that people will actually use and be able to have success with? But then the third piece, which is where we position ourselves, as an industry leader, is the connectivity and the API integrations into other systems. Companies like BOA, and Vince can talk about this, as well as a lot of our shipper partners and retailers, have invested into larger infrastructure systems like an ERP, TMS, or something like P44 or FourKites, like I've mentioned before, where Tive can be agnostic and just be a data provider that will plug and play into those other systems to allow you to have sensor data within these systems that you've already built out and your team's using on a day-to-day for much larger processes. And so, you want to look to a partner that has an easy and flexible API, where your IT team can just take that data and bring it into whatever source they want, allowing the data to be more usable across teams. Similar to like a passive logger not being, the data not being usable for proactive measures, data that's siloed to one team, whether that just be transportation or logistics, is also not the best benefit. You want your sales team to use the data. You want your service team to use the data. You want your quality team to use it. And so having a, provider that allows for the data to be shared through multiple systems is definitely a benefit.
Excellent. Thank you, Raj. Vince, what has BOA's experience been with the need to track shipments and keep up with advancements?
Yeah, so as mentioned, we are a nationwide perishable consolidator, basically shipping mostly out of the West Coast, Los Angeles. We have a cold storage here in downtown LA. We're essentially moving 400 shipments per week across 70 consolidated loads, all of which are either perishable or frozen. So with that being said, we're basically putting one of these devices in every single one of our outbound trailers, and to Raj's point, we have a whole team of employees that are essentially monitoring the temperatures, as well as the location via API into our TMS. And to Raj's point, they've been really good about making that part user friendly. Historically, before the 5G technology, we were working with a couple of Tyve's competitors, and the technology was faulty at times. The platform wasn't really user friendly. Take longer to get downloads of information or incorrect information. Specifically if a reefer unit breaks down, you have to go to a Thermo King center to essentially get the download. Which is essentially taking the truck driver off of the road. It costs an additional, I want to say, $750 to get the download. So Tyve is essentially a very useful technology for us. We're basically tracking temperature, location, delays in transit. We're taking the data from Tyve, coupled with weather data. For instance, if it's the middle of August and our trucks are leaving Los Angeles going through Arizona and New Mexico where it's 120 degrees outside, sometimes you have to make on-the-fly decisions. Even though the trailer is supposed to be running at 33 degrees, perhaps you need to run it at 31 degrees for the duration of Arizona, just because of how hot it is outside. Additionally, we're also utilizing it for the light sensors, so that we understand when the trailer doors open and close. And again, this also helps us with making decisions in real time surrounding the setting on the reefer unit. Because if, for instance, we have the truck at a particular receiver, for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours, and it's extremely hot outside, potentially, the integrity of the inside of the trailer could be compromised because it's been sitting so long. So this allows us to communicate with our drivers quickly and efficiently to make real-time decisions.
Excellent. Thank you. And Vince, could you tell us a little bit about how you're using the platform as well? How is it integrated for you?
Yeah, so the platform is actually one of the main reasons that I made the decision to switch to Tyve. It's extremely user-friendly and has a lot more bells and whistles than some of their competitors. I would say that for us, we are utilizing it to track stop data and provide alerts. So essentially, we're setting up our shipments within Tyve to basically report and send alerts to specific employees' emails, so that, for instance, if the driver seems to be running behind, somebody gets an email. If the temperature seems to be swinging in the trailer, somebody gets an email, right? So the platform itself is very user-friendly, and as I've mentioned, we have integrated it into our TMS as well.
Excellent. And how has that approach lowered your costs and improved your customer experience?
Yeah, so every week at least 5 trucks have, reefer issues. Whether it almost never fails that something is going to happen. Those are time decisions, right? There's less spoilage. It minimizes the chance for contamination. Sometimes on the opposite side of things, the trailer can be cold. Eventually, it ruins the product due to separation, or, if it's kombucha as an example, it will explode. So those are some of the things that, on a high level are ultimately we're seeing a big difference with Tyve. Essentially, customer experience-wise, it helps dispute claims from the receivers to our client. We can document, what happened, approval, detention charges, utilize time to document in and out times of a specific receiver, because a lot of the time the receivers won't actually document in and out times on the paperwork. But this allows us to fight chargebacks because we actually have the data from Tyve that we can provide back to the retailer and say, our truck actually was here this long. It just wasn't documented correctly on the paperwork. So there are many different use cases for Tyve, all of which are helping us in cost reduction.
Excellent. Thank you, Vince. Raj, are those the kinds of results that you found on the survey and are hearing about from Tyve clients about how they can better serve their customers?
Yeah, our survey found when it comes to the key benefits, the highest ranked benefit was end customer satisfaction at 73%. Risk and theft reduction ranked third at 57%. The benefits are a multitude. Everyone is getting better outcomes from using these sorts of solutions. Customers are happier, they're stickier, but more importantly, from the shipper side of things and logistics partner side of things, as far as operational gains and how people are using this technology, it's tremendous. You're no longer operating in the dark and eliminating the guessing game. That is, what not having real-time visibility is. By doing this, you're able to make informed decisions and consistent deliver a high-quality product with a longer shelf life. You're increasing the safety. There's less waste, higher sustainability. And also your customers, like I said, are happier because they're being able to be involved in the process through data sharing, being able to know when things are coming in, being able to know when something might be coming in with an issue, as opposed to just finding out, more in a more delayed manner before, like what without real-time visibility might be. On the shipper side of things, as we've talked about, quite a bit throughout this session here, costs are tremendously high to operate right now. And so losing loads, having loads with issues is just something you cannot continue to operate with. And by implementing these sorts of solutions, you're decreasing the likelihood of these things happening, which should lead to more sellable products and greater profits. And also, if your people can be more productive, they can go on to do more things. You can operate more leanly with less people, which should also increase the business profits as well.
Yeah, those sound like really impactful benefits. Thank you, Raj. What are some best practices to make sure you're optimizing use of live trackers for real-time shipment visibility?
Yeah, and, we talked a little bit about the things you should look at before when looking at a partner. For us, it's coming down to hardware, software, as well as the integrations and connectivity piece of things. But looking at partners, as I've said, there's a bunch out there doing trackers today, but not everyone's doing it in the same way. So you definitely want to look to a provider that's more of a service provider, someone that has a great 24/7 support team. Someone that's going to have dedicated account management to help your team operationalize and use the system on a day-to-day being. Things will come up. There's going to be issues. Hardware is not perfect. And so you want to have someone that will be there for you to help combat issues and troubleshoot things on a day-to-day. You also want to look to someone who's innovative. Technology is always changing, especially in the IoT space. Vince and Bo are longtime partners of Tive, and they've been through several iterations of our device, from 2G to 3G to now 5G. And so you want to make sure that you're with a partner that is consistently innovating and ahead of the curve, given that technology in the IoT space is always changing. There's always going to be that next best thing. So the product roadmap is also important as well. Here at Tive, we're constantly having our product and account management team survey customers, talk to them to understand, hey, you're using this solution on a day-to-day. What else can we add to the platform or the device to make this a bigger part of your processes, to help you on things that you're challenged with on a day-to-day? And so those are the things I would say. This is, from looking at a solution partner, but there's also the best practices as far as how you might use this on a day-to-day. And I talked about earlier how, with the API and connectivity into other systems, it opens us up to other teams. But even if you aren't doing that, you should make the deployment of this type of solution open company-wide. Have sales use this to deliver better customer service and have strong conversations with their customers. From a support perspective, use this to drive meaningful conversations and be ahead of issues with your customers and not operate off of guessing games and unreliable data. From a logistics and transportation perspective, those are probably our biggest buyer personas. Use this to benchmark carriers and increase your on-time scores and in-full scores. All of this data is super meaningful to every single process from a logistics and transportation perspective. And so a lot can come out of the benefits to that department. From a quality perspective as well, understanding how temperature fluctuations happen through different delivery areas or with new products, and use these for qualitative studies. And then from a production perspective as well, how can monitoring temperature and other conditions help me drive different packaging behaviors and different future packaging perspectives as well.
Excellent. Those are some great tips. Thank you, Raj and Vince. So today we talked about the challenges facing food shippers when it comes to visibility and how evolving needs, regulations, and escalating costs are making real-time shipment tracking a must for a safe, effective supply chain. We learned how trackers have become more powerful and multifunctional, and how shippers such as BOA Logistics are leveraging real-time visibility to reduce costs and delight their customers. And we found out what best practices enable food shippers to optimize their use of real-time tracking. So we do have a few minutes left to field some questions, so feel free to post your questions in the widget, including the name of the speaker that you'd like to hear from, and we'll try to get to all of them. So it looks like this first one, Vince, is for you. This audience member would like to know, what are some lessons BOA has learned about making the best use of live trackers?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would have to say inputting as much complete data as possible about the shipment into Tide, making sure that the parameters within Tide are set correctly, example being alerts for temperature, acceptable temperature range within the trailer, intervals of transmission set properly for product distance requirements. As an example, if we're sending a trailer from Los Angeles all the way to New York City, we will actually adjust the transmission intervals a little bit higher than if we were going to, for instance, Washington State. So utilizing that properly, as well as the templates that they have within the platform to make the process easier.
Great. Thank you, Vince. Raj, this next one is for you. Can you tell us more about how real-time visibility will play a role in FSMA 204 requirements?
Yeah, I mean, FSMA 204 is something everyone's talking about. You know, there's been a lot of legislation with the Food Safety Modernization Acts over the last couple of years, which people have had to change behaviors, implement technology very quickly, and there's more coming down the pipe. But, you know, while Tive isn't the key solver to FSMA, it definitely plays a role in how people are thinking about it. Specifically, you know, with FSMA 204, it talks about critical tracking events throughout the supply chain. You know, from field all the way to fork, and transportation and handling is definitely one of them. And so on FSMA 204, there's, you know, specific foods that are on the food traceability list, ranging from leafy greens to berries to microgreens to certain cheeses and fishes, and a couple other products as well. But, you know, basically with FSMA 204, it's all about digital record keeping and how quickly someone can get, you know, these records to the public in the case of an outbreak or some sort of issue with contamination. And so with that transportation and handling being a key critical event, and Tive having the ability to collect and store data throughout that process, that attributes to the larger FSMA 204 rulings and what you're going to need to be able to support. So tracking the temperature, the location, and all of the timestamps of the product through that piece of the supply chain. If you're using a real-time solution, you will be in accordance, because you'll have this digital record keeping on the cloud, which Tive does store for all time.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. It looks like we have time for one more. So Vince, this audience member asks, besides location and temperature, what other sensors are you using in your shipments?
We're utilizing the light sensors, which basically allows us to know how long the doors are open at a particular shipper or receiver. As mentioned, you know, earlier on this call, there's essentially been a backlog of delays at most of the retailers in recent time. And understanding how long the doors have been open allows us to really make some very quick decisions. For instance, if the driver's being held for 6 hours and the temperature in the trailer is spiking because of that, we can do a couple of different things. We can call the driver. We could reach out to the receiver. If those don't work, we will basically contact our customer to talk to their buyer. And this light data allows us to be proactively approaching these conversations.
Excellent. All right. Well, that is all the time that we have today. I'd like to thank our speakers, Raja Nagaraja and Vince Reve, for a great discussion today. We appreciate you sharing your insights and expertise with us. I'd also like to thank our audience for joining us today. We hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.